All right, welcome everyone to the Innovative Pedagogy Podcast Leadership Series. I'm your host, Chris Garcia. Today's episode focuses on leadership beyond a single organization. We're going to be talking about how leaders shape the field itself through professional communities, innovation, and thoughtful risk-taking. Joining me today is Dr. Laura Spencer. Laura serves as a Chief Academic Officer at Elite Academy, and she's also the past President of CALIE through CUE, where she helped guide professional learning and innovation for educators across California. I also want to add this. She is, even in my opinion, and of course with the accolades that she has, a national voice in AR, VR, and AI-supported learning with a consistent focus on human-centered design and equity. Laura, thank you so much for being with us today.
A great intro. Thank you, Chris.
Hey, you're welcome. Hey, I've
I gotta live up to that hype now.
I think you will with the stories that you're about to share and the things that we're going to be talking about.
Sure.
I definitely think you will. And first things first, how are you? How's life? And how are you managing everything going on in life right now, especially as we finish off 2025, going into 2026?
It has been a year, 2025. It's actually like a year of change, which I feel like for the next 5-10 years, we're probably going to say that every single year, right? But it's been a great year. I'm excited to see what's coming in 2026. It's beautiful outside. I was saying, like, get the stripe of sunshine on my sweater because you can't beat San Diego, but life is good. I'm excited to be here.
Good. And I love seeing the work that you do. We're going to put it on the show notes, but if you have not subscribed to Dr. Laura Spencer's blog and leadership thoughts, please do yourself a favor and do so, because
Thank you.
one of the yes, I'll put that on the show notes. And I just want to say that some of the things that I've always enjoyed working with you ever since I joined our affiliate and San Diego CUE board, which is now powered through CALIE, and was when you were the president. And this was back in 2017, 2018, and it was one of the last few years you were leading. But I always valued and respected the human-centered relationships that you always just put forth. And still reading your blogs now and the times that you take to reflect, to slow down, and just to reflect on just life in general. I just want to say I value that, and I want to thank you for doing that, because
Thank you.
that consistency right there is actually what speaks volumes to me, because it's like Laura's the same leader that she was when I first met her up until right now. And those things that you do is just really, it's very valuable. So thank you, Laura.
I think you just wrote my tombstone for me. You know, they say, like, what do you want to be remembered for? I truly think that's it. You know, it's not like, oh, Laura did a one-to-one iPad initiative, or, you know, Laura has a great Land Rover, but it is that. I think it's that human-centered. If people walk away saying she knew me and she cared about me as a human, that's it. That's my tombstone right there.
Hey, well, hopefully that we don't have to write that for a long time.
I hope not.
But yeah, at least one thing off the checklist, and we're like, all right, we're set to go. But but speaking of CUE and being that's really how we started our relationship and our collaborations and whatnot. Kind of talk to me about you stepped in, and I saw the transition. I had the opportunity of seeing you step out of our affiliate board from San Diego CUE, jumping into, and actually one of our first podcasts that I recorded back in like 2019, we were talking about just you being with CUE and whatnot. But you transitioned out into a very difficult time, of course, when COVID happened, and now you're transitioning out of CUE as serving as a president, and now with the rebrand of CALIE. So can you kind of talk about some of the leadership just challenges and decisions and human-centeredness you had to focus on within the last 5 years?
It's been a ride, and I know I've joked with this with people before. When I joined the board, I'd left San Diego CUE, was joining CUE, and I joked, I'm like, oh, we get to go out to dinner, we get to travel around California, it's gonna be so much fun. And COVID hit. And COVID hit CUE hard because we were a conference-focused organization, right? The majority of our budget at the time came from a conference. So then you can't have a conference, and you have contracts though that have to be fulfilled. And the board, we were having honest conversations about, like, should we declare bankruptcy? You know, where are we at as an organization? And I think honestly, if you had, I don't remember how many people were on the board at that time because we've grown, but if you had had a board full of business people, they probably would have done that. But what I loved is you had a board full of people who were human centered, and we said we can't do that. Like now more than ever, educators need this organization. They need this voice. They need somebody to help steer the ship into this new future. And so I think bringing my leadership style to the table. Then I started as secretary, moved up to president, had to hire our new executive director. I actually was executive director with no pay for a few months because I didn't realize in the fine print of board president was if there's no ED, you are the ED.
Wow.
Yeah. And then, hired Christine, who's the director now. But everything that we do is trying to focus on membership, which is human centered. Because you're not selling a product, right? I'm not out there saying, here, we're selling water bottles, buy these water bottles. We're selling an idea that innovation is important and that students are important and that education is important. And so it was really critical that we not turn the lights off, that people saw that if this organization can weather this storm and make it through, so can every single person under us. So it was a huge learning experience for me to try and figure out how to do that. Obviously, we've all as leaders gone through crises before at some level, but not at a level that was like worldwide, right? And so it really made me refocus and become even more grounded in that human-centered approach to everything. Tools come and go, people don't, right? You got to take care of the people.
Oh, 100%. And on that same note, you're reminding me and I'm thankful that you all didn't, but if you would have committed, like if you would have chosen to bankrupt the program or the organization, we had AI hitting us 2 years later. No. At least education-wise, and everyone would have been like, who do we go to? Who do we find support? Where do we gather as people?
There's so many great organizations out there. So I'm certainly not going to say that, like CALIE's the only amazing organization out there, but it is very different, and like, obviously we have like SITE, which is, California IT in education, and they're fabulous. I love them too. But that's more the technical side, right? AI is coming. How are we going to do this? What parameters are we going to put in place? Versus, on the CALIE side now is, okay, AI in education's here. How is this going to empower educators? How is this going to create conditions to build new skill sets for students for the future? Like, that's such a different conversation than a lot of other people are having. And then as a board, to be those people who are kind of doing the work and guiding the organization to say, no, this is what we value, right? And telling the organization, the staff, like, this is the direction we're heading. You're right. I mean, it's been so much. It's crazy to think 5 years ago, we were all locked in our homes wondering if we were going to die. Right. And now here we are, and we've got AI taking over everything, and we've got like virtual reality. We've got, I don't know, it's just such a different landscape. I'd love to actually go back to our old podcast too and just see what we were talking about then versus what we're talking about now. Cause I feel like that was a completely different world than what we're in now. And the leadership is more critical now because it is so unknown.
And okay, so on that note, and we were kind of talking about just even transitions and working with people and leadership, but a lot of these conversations when it comes to leadership is as leaders being innovative and being willing to take risks. How, and you've been in positions where you've had to have these conversations and maybe even force yourself out of your comfort zone to take innovations, to have difficult conversations, to taking a risk. Can you share some of those experiences? How do you navigate that specifically yourself mentally and even kind of pushing yourself like, all right, I'm going to do this and I do not know what the outcome is going to look like?
I mean, that's it, right? You have to be willing to do that. The thing is as a leader, it's influence over control, right? If you think being a leader means establishing control and then you're in the wrong line of work. I have to influence. And so if I'm going to influence others and like, I want them to grow, right? I want them to make good decisions. I have to feel very confident in myself. And also that failure is okay. I mean, obviously not like catastrophic failure, but innovation comes with risk. And I'm going to model that I'm willing to take this element of risk. What is that element of risk and how have I mitigated it? Have I looked at it, right? Certain parameters we put in place. But my goal is always like to influence others. And I don't mean influence them like to get them to do what I want type of thing, right? Which is control, but to see the greater picture. And so like you talked about earlier, like I will put myself out there. Like I'll put on LinkedIn or on my blog, like, here's what I'm thinking right now. And I value the kickback, right? I want people to say, oh my goodness. And somebody was telling me the other day, she said, Laura, I noticed that in meetings when you're thinking stuff, you'll say, I'm curious about. And I love that term, right? Because it's not like, hey, I have a question for you, or why are you doing this? Which can be very like, are you second guessing me? But when I say, well, I'm curious about this approach, I'm curious why you're saying that, I think it opens the doors to conversation and makes people also like wonder. And so you have to do that with innovation. You have to be curious, and you have to model that. But you're really, everything I do is like culture shaping, right? I'm not trying to manage people. I do that, right? I manage people in terms of, are you going to work? Are you calling in sick? I do that, but that's not what I got into this for. I want to shape culture. I want people to be excited about the future. And how do I do that? By modeling it, by being excited about the future, right? By saying, I tried this thing on AI and it failed. And anybody do it better than that? Or how are you doing this? If I always go out there and say, I've got this figured out, I've got this figured out, I've got this figured out, I'm lying. But also, nobody is going to feel comfortable taking risks. And I've had that conversation with had a colleague who we know mutually, was a teacher, then became an administrator, and is now doing other things. And I used to say to her, like, don't put yourself so far out ahead of the group that they feel like they can't reach you, right? You have to show your growth so that people say, oh, I can do that. But if I came out tomorrow and I'm an Olympic level skier and I'm like, come on, Chris, I'm going to show you how to ski, you're going to be like, oh my gosh, like, I can't do what you do.
Yeah.
Right. But if I say, hey, I tried skiing and I think I got the bunny slopes figured out and I'm doing this stuff, do you want to come with me? You're more likely to say, yeah, I'll give it a shot. I've never done it either. Right. Let's go try this out together. And I think that's big for leaders. And I think a lot of leaders are afraid of that. They feel like they have to be in control. And by being in control, they have to be right and have to have it figured out. And I'm the opposite. I will tell you, I don't know. And how are you going to help me? And I think that's what leads to innovation, because now you have groups coming together and saying, well, here's what I think, or here's what I wonder. But if I come in and say, I have it figured out and here's how we're doing it, where's the innovation there? I'm just telling you what to do.
No, that's beautifully said. And I've noticed a consistent correlation between being able to lead people, take risks, but always inviting a team to do it with you.
Yeah.
And I've seen that happen across districts here in San Diego, districts that I've worked for, and even just seeing your work, always inviting people. And necessarily, it's not necessarily like you said, you invite, well, I look at it like sometimes leaders in districts, they'll invite their staff and everyone, all right, are you ready to do this? But what you do on a different level is you will invite people, like even socially on like on LinkedIn. Like, hey, what's your thoughts on this? And I believe also with even leaving the comment section open on your blog.
Well, I mean, think about when we were growing up. I've told people, if I had access, I'm pre-internet. So for anybody young watching this, I grew up before there was a thing called the internet. Actually, to go to the library to learn something. But there were careers available in the world that I didn't know about because I was limited by my zip code in terms of who could influence my life. I had great teachers. It's not a bad thing, but I was still limited by what they knew about the world. So what they could tell me about the world. So when I said, oh, I'm interested in science and I like this or that, nobody said, oh, you could be this blah, 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 right? They didn't know about those things. They were just like, well, you could be a scientist, So we open these doors. And so, yeah, as a leader, you could say to your staff, hey, I want you to bring this to the table, or what do you think? And that's fabulous, but you're still also limited. These are the people I hired. But sometimes when you go out and people who don't have any bias or any understanding of what you're doing, you get the greatest ideas. And so that is why I will leave my comments open, or why I will, again, like share my vulnerability on LinkedIn, because now I'm not limited by zip code at all. I'm not even limited by my country borders.
Right.
I've had yesterday I was on a meeting and there were people from England and Ireland and Mexico City. And I'm like, oh my goodness gracious. We've had so many different life experiences. And so they bring wisdom to the table. Why would I ever turn that down? And the second I say, oh, I have the answer, I've turned all that away, right? I'm like, okay, this is it. So that's my goal, is to never ever do that, right? I will always put it out there. The other piece too is I always want to work myself out of a job.
Yeah.
And if I know the answers, then people depend on me for the answers. but if I turn it back, and if you come to me and you're like, hey, Laura, I'm having a problem with this person, and how do I handle this situation? Or I don't understand what to do with this technology thing. And I tell you, okay, Chris, here are your 3 steps. I want you to go do this, and then I want you to do that, and then you're going to do that. You might have a great outcome, but what's going to happen next time? You're going to come to me again. Like, I want to teach you and work myself out of that spot where then you go coach others. Right. So it's that gift that keeps on giving. I just never want to be that sole spot.
No, and that's beautifully said. And on that same topic of even just being innovative and risk taking and empowering others, I want to dive into just your experience of with augmented reality or virtual reality. Where does that land? And before we kind of dive into like the nuances and how it works and whatnot, what gave you the interest of like, hey, you know what? I want to dive into AR VR. Like, what gave you that notion of like diving deeper into that?
It's funny. I was actually presenting at Meta, I think a month ago, and this is part of my talk is, remember years ago when Google Glass came out, the glasses?
Yes,
and,
yes.
Hal Davidson had a pair on it at the Q conference, and he's like, do you want to see what the future looks like? And, he let me wear them, and we took a selfie together. And at the time, it was so cool, but it was like just cool to be cool. Like, there was no, and obviously they didn't last, right? There was no real purpose. People were afraid of it because they're like, are you spying on me? And it caused a lot of backlash. Google Cardboard came out, right? And we all tried Google Cardboard. I remember telling parents like, hey, if you buy new phones for Christmas, will you donate your old phones to us so we can pop them in that cardboard case and do some things?
Yeah.
And then in another district I was in, we even bought VR. But all this journey, VR has always been like an extra. It's like glitter, right? And we know that glitter is messy too. Like, glitter's fun until you try to vacuum up glitter after you use it.
Great analogy. Right? I love it.
And same with like augmented reality at the time. It was glitter. Like, we did some cool things with it. Don't get me wrong. Like Katie Hammock with her one-to-one iPods. Kids first, second graders were doing augmented reality where they were like reading a book and I don't know, just rad stuff. But it was always glitter. And the difference, what gets me excited now, is not even VR, it's AI in VR. Because now what I'm finding is you can, like for example, I can create a virtual reality space, and I can throw a student in it. Let's say it's like a science lab. And so a student goes around and they can mix chemicals, right? That's been around for 10, 15 years in VR, right? You could go in there and you can mix chemicals and see if they explode or not. And it's safer than doing it in your high school lab where your chemistry teacher might get mad at you. But it's still it's cool. It's elevated. But if I can now put an AI character in there and you can have a conversation with that character, and that character can ask you, well, why do you think that is, Laura? Why do you think the acid and the base is reacting that way? And have conversations with me. Like, now it's a next level. And that's where I started to get excited. But then what I saw, the even next level that's making me really excited, is can that AI not just talk to me about the content, but can it start helping me develop skills? So in other words, instead of just saying, okay, Laura, what's the difference between an acid and a base, and why did you just blow up the science lab? Can this AI character start to teach me how to think more critically? Can it start to help me develop more metacognition skills? Can it help me become more curious? And I think the answer is yes. And so that's where I'm getting excited about virtual reality, because I can give students opportunities beyond their zip code, right? And beyond the adults in the room. And so I've reduced risk, I've reduced barriers, I've put them in spaces, but I'm also developing the bigger skills that they need for the future.
Yeah.
So it's not just about, I went and saw what it's like to go to an outdoor shopping center in Morocco, right? Like, you can do that in VR. You could go and experience that, and you can see the sights and sounds, and that's amazing. But can you now with AI talk about how that experience differs from yours? Or can AI say, if you were to build your own area, what would that look like? You know what I mean? Like, it's just, it's a different level. So it's not just a field trip anymore. It's developing the core skills that students are going to need to be successful, because we don't know what's coming.
Right.
And any person who tells you, well, these are the things, and then you're going to be successful in life, is selling you snake oil. We have no idea.
Right, right.
So that's why I'm excited about virtual reality and AI, is really pushing the envelope of, can you take these tools that would seem to the normal eye to be like anti-human and make them even more human? Like people will tell you if you put on a headset, you have now like, right, you're not connected with anybody. And wasn't there like an old cartoon of everybody like wearing headsets and like not, being
I think
out?
it was Wally.
Yeah, right. And it was like they'd wheel places and such. But can I actually use it to become more empathetic and more connected? And I think you can. And that's what excites me. If you and I sat next to each other in a classroom, and let's say it's math, right, which is an area that I struggled with in school, and I had a question and I didn't want to raise my hand and ask it, right? Because I'm shy or whatever. But you have no fear asking a question, right? Your needs are getting met, right? And my needs are not getting met. And maybe the person next to both you and I doesn't even have to ask questions because they know it all. We're all in the same classroom getting like not equitable opportunities for success, right? What if I could put on my headset and you don't know now what level of work I'm doing? Right. So now it's like me and my AI math tutor or whatever the case may be, and I can have this experience with them in this world. Now it's more equitable, right? We're each getting like the level that we need, but we can also communicate. We can also collaborate, but I can also still like have my own opportunity. I'm also not distracted by you because I'm in my space with my AI character, my math tutor. You're there. And what if the school that we went to couldn't hire a great math teacher? Now, if I put on this headset, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, we can learn from Neil deGrasse Tyson if we wanted to in this VR AI space, right? And have like the best experiences ever. So I think barriers are going to be removed and possibilities are going to be increased. And we're at the very tip of it. Like it hasn't even, VR is still like, what is that? Is it glitter? But I truly think like this marriage of AI and VR creates possibilities. I don't want kids in headsets all day.
No, absolutely.
Like if people are like, oh, that's what you want. You want to replace teachers. I'm like, I don't want any of that.
No.
But I think you can have an amazing 30-minute, 1 hour experience that can propel you a lot farther than you realize.
No,
and
absolutely.
It's exciting to me. And I play silly games on it too, right? I'm like, my husband's like, what are you doing? I'm like, Beat Saber, I'm dancing in the living room, I'm chasing aliens around. And he's like, what is happening right now? He's like, I'm trying to watch TV, like get out of my way. But
well, I want to add two things because one, we're going to dispel this whole thing about having kids on headsets because we're going to talk about ethics and even balance in a few moments. But I wanted to bring up a couple things that you might find very interesting. And that is, I was having a conversation around Thanksgiving with my wife, and we were actually doing our evening walk. And one of the things that she brought up, so she's an attorney, and she was sharing with me, her law firm, they work on a plethora of cases and have clientele and galore, like have over 150 attorneys there that work on anything and everything. And one of the things was patents when it comes to solidifying. She said that one of the projects that she actually had to review, and she was working with a team of attorneys, was this medical company that is creating an opportunity for doctors to get a scan of a person that needs like spinal surgery. And what happens is this scan comes in, and then the doctor's able to put on an AR/VR headset and look at the scan of this entire person's like body or whatever the person needs surgery on, and they're able to practice the surgery virtually before they actually do the actual surgery. So that way, it's almost like they've rehearsed it several times. And the reason why her firm is interested in supporting this is because she also works with medical malpractice and supporting the doctors that get sued for medical malpractice. And they're very stoked on this because it's like, wow, now we're adding a tier of support and a way of us making sure and ensuring that we know exactly what we're doing before we even put a knife through. So I'm looking at that level. And then the other thing I'm looking at it is just, and I've brought this up with another podcast with someone that I talked to, and I think I've brought him up to you, but Pejman Salehi, who's in Conestoga, talked about how there was a group of firefighters that they were working with, and they have to go through a final training of having a specific time of getting inside a house, putting the fire out, and coming out. And they had a case study where they had a group of students that actually practiced that AR VR headset and a group that didn't. Or like there was 4 groups, one of the groups did, and the other 3 groups did not. They just went through the traditional training. And that one of those groups that did the AR VR headset, their time was twice as fast as everybody else.
And probably not just their time was fast, but I bet their anxiety level was reduced too.
100%.
And that's the key. And so some people know I'm also former military, and I have a lot of friends who are still in the military. And so, for example, like Navy SEALs. Navy SEALs will shoot guns like thousands of rounds a day. Like the muscle memory is no joke on how fast and how well they can aim, right? And so when they are in a tense situation, it just clicks, right? Like they don't have to think about it. They just do but that's also a lot of money to do that every day like that. So these opportunities, right, like that doctor, and I think about that doctor, like if I went into a doctor and they had to do a surgery on me and it was like, oh, like I haven't done this one that often. There's a high chance that if I mess this up, she's going to be, like my dad had back surgery. Like if they like nick it wrong, you could be paralyzed, right? Like those types of things, right?
Yeah.
How many doctors, I wonder, I don't know, I'm not medical, but how many doctors won't then even recommend that procedure because they don't want to be on the line for it? Right? Like, you might, and I'm not going to recommend this to her. It's like risky. But if I could say, I've practiced this 50 times in this space, I've got it down, right? Or remember, what was that game we used to play? Operation.
Yes.
Right? We'd have to get those things out. Okay, I've practiced this game so many times, I can now get this piece out without ever hitting the shock on the sides. I wonder how many more people would have opportunities to like get the things that they need. And then when you were talking about that, and I was thinking about students because we're in education, I also wonder how many students go into fields that end up not being what they want, right? Like, for example, when I was young, I wanted to be a veterinarian because I love animals. Mm-hmm. And luckily, I knew somebody who said, just understand, most of a veterinarian's job is not fun. People are bringing you animals that have been hit by a car that need or that are old. And so like they're like, it could be very overwhelming to be in this world.
Right.
What if through VR I could like live a day in the life of a veterinarian and I could do that for like a week, and at the end of the week I'm like, wow, that was a lot of stuff I did not enjoy. Like how many people would be able to like better chart their path forward?
Right.
If they had these opportunities. So yes, God, now I want to talk to your wife. Like I love this idea that and I've heard of this before that people are using this space to do these things, and it lowers the risk level and it increases the skill level.
Absolutely.
Right? And so why wouldn't you do that? And even, like leadership. So if I have to call you and I have to have a tough conversation with you, mm-hmm. right? And I'm like, oh, I'm so nervous. I avoid conflict at all costs. This is like the worst part about being a leader for me. What if I could go into virtual reality and again, have somebody there mm-hmm. and even tell it, here's the situation.
Yeah.
Right? And practice and see, okay, I got this response. That's not quite what I'm going for. Let me try this again, right? Oh, my AI character keeps getting upset. I'm not trying to get my character upset. I want them to find the positive in this, right? And now when I finally call you, I'm feeling very confident in the conversation and you feel valued in the outcome because I'm not stuttering through it. And
it helps with the clarity. It helps with so much clarity and it brings up a lot of guidance. Mm-hmm. And to that point also, that's the beauty about artificial intelligence.
Yeah.
I mean, the reality is anyone that's been in an administrative role for the most part and that feels comfortable with AI, we have run these scenarios like, how do I respond to this angry colleague, coworker, I do it all the time. Parent?
Well, and I took it one step forward and I've presented on this to multiple people. So for my staff, I made a spreadsheet of like all the things I know about my staff, right? So you do all those like surveys, like Clifton Strengths, I think, or you do this, or, they're into soccer. And I will be honest with you, Chris, I am horrible at remembering these types of things. I try, like I value my team, but my brain, I'm too like, whoa, what? Huh? And so I forget.
Yeah.
So I started a spreadsheet and I would even ask them like, what's your thing? What do you do on the weekends? Do you have kids? All these. And just as I get to know them more, I just keep adding onto the spreadsheet. I put that spreadsheet in Gemini. And now when I'm thinking about my staff, I can actually have targeted. So I'm not just saying Gemini, I have a staff member sometimes, responds this way. I can say I'm having a conversation with Chris, no last names or anything, right? But I'm having a conversation with Chris and I really want him to take on this new role, but I'm nervous that he's going to say no because he has other things going on in his life, right? And it'll say, okay, let's take this approach with Chris. Remember, Chris's strengths are strategizer. So when you talk to Chris, you're going to, and so now it's relevant. And when I've shared that in conferences, people are like, I never thought AI could be human centered. I'm like, oh no, it can.
Mm-hmm.
But it's like what you put into is what you get out of it, right? So if all I ever do is say, make my email better, then I'm always just going to be like this robotic email sender, right? But if I say to it, here's the people under me and I'm trying to like better them, or I'm trying to do this or do that, help me,
Mm-hmm.
it will.
No, I love that part because it brings back that human aspect, and it also brings back that opportunity of being very personal. And I will say, like, there are certain leadership qualities that I put even when I prompt my AI, whether it be John Maxwell or whether it be even other communication experts that I follow. And I say like, hey, how would this individual respond?
Totally.
Or even like a Mel Robbins, like, hey, what would Mel Robbins think about this?
Right.
Like, because I mean, you hear these podcasts and these people
Right.
with these different voices, and you want to kind of process it that way, and at the same time, even I would say, add your own voice with that as well. That's
Right.
something I do. Sometimes I go back and I tell AI like, hey, this is the way I actually would have written it. Thank you for the suggestion.
Yeah, I do that a lot. I will actually say, and here's my final draft, right?
Yeah.
So it starts to learn you. But even going back to like the John Maxwell, like if you put in there and you said, hey, this is what I'm walking into. I value John Maxwell. I want you to come at it from a John Maxwell lens, but you could also add in there, and the person I'm talking to really loves Brene Brown. So now you've got two lenses, right? So now you're not just focused on you,
right?
Just going out, but like I am a very John Maxwell person going out, but the person on the receiving end is a very Brene Brown.
Yeah.
So don't lose sight of me, but also how does this person want to be received? Because that whole like it's a weird misnomer. I think that whole treat others how you want to be treated, I think is actually incorrect. Because how I want to be treated might not be how you want to be treated. So the key is when it says like treat others how you would like to be treated, like the golden rule to me is more just I want to be treated with like care and that you've thought about me. And so what does that look like? That means you have to understand the other person. And that's where I love AI to help me with that, because our bias is our own lens.
Right.
Well, this is how I would want to know it. Right. I would want you to just tell me what you want from me, but that might not be somebody else. So I use AI for that a lot. Like, how would they want it? I want to tell them this, but how do they want to receive that information? Let's work through that. And then, of course, now go put your own slant on it. Take out all the M dashes. No, but like make it your own, right? Add a couple errors so people are like, must not be AI. Look, she like misspelled this word. I don't know. I'm just kidding. But I do think it has its place, and I think VR then becomes another level to that.
No, right? Absolutely.
And like as teachers, how many times we went through student teaching, nobody prepared us.
No.
Right? But VR can help. Like VR can give you situations, right? And put you in there and have you do things. And a lot of colleges now have like sim type things online, but they're so two-dimensional and you're distracted and you're doing other things. But I put that headset on.
Can't focus on anything else.
I'm not checking my text messages. Like, we've had work meetings in VR because there's a bunch of us that have VR. We've had work meetings where it's like, we have got to get to a conclusion on this. 30 minutes in VR. Right after that, I'm getting a little queasy. 30 minutes in VR. I'm not checking my text message. I don't see that 10 emails have popped up over here. I haven't noticed that my cat is chewing something up in the corner. I'm 30 minutes in this space with you and nothing else.
Yeah.
That's powerful, especially in this economy of 8 seconds of time.
Right. It feels like it gets lower and lower every single generation.
I know.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, on that note, I do want to. There's still a couple questions I wanted before we finish our episode, but the one is kind of talk a bit more about like the governance, ethics, and guardrails as far as artificial intelligence is concerned. I know you've had the opportunity of working with Gretchen Shipley from F3 Law. She's a wealth of knowledge. Yes. So, like, what are some of the things you've learned from working with her, especially on the legal side, and things that maybe if there's one or two just nuggets that you're like, wait a second, I never considered that, or things that like have been brought to light in your conversations with even working with an educational lawyer like someone like Gretchen?
I think, overall, one of the things I keep thinking is like, just because we can doesn't mean we should. And so, her thing is always just think first, right? And be a little bit more cautious than you would want. And we talk a lot. We've done a lot of conferences together, and of course, we're talking about like PII and keeping student data safe, and those are all pretty basic. Yeah. But I think the idea of the quality of the data in is the quality of the data out, right? And you can't trust AI is not like this like magna intelligent thing, right? It's that's not what it is. It's not this all-knowing. And so you have to be the validator. You have, again, the humanity. You have to be the human in this whole equation. And that's where I feel like the bottom line of everything we talk about there is like you have to bring the humanity to it. AI can do a lot of great things for you, but you have to be the one. Right. It doesn't come up with this stuff on its own. So we talk a lot about, being mindful of the extra load actually that AI can add to somebody too. Like it doesn't just take things off your plate. It can actually also add if you're not careful. There's a lot of teachers who are stressed out about AI. They're stressed out about kids cheating. They're stressed out, all these other things. So being mindful and how you're rolling it out and how you're supporting people and you roll it out. And that the second you think you have it figured out, it's changed again. So policies can't be don't do this, don't do that, don't do that, right? Because the laws change and the tool changes, but really coming at it as how do we want to use AI to enhance what we're doing? And then your policies reflecting that, right? Like we see AI as a way to open doors to new opportunities to grow skills. So in that sense, here's what we're providing, AI to do for us. And it's just a different mindset, versus like, you're going to be in trouble if you do this thing. Although, we cover that stuff too, of course. Right. I don't know. I just think that's a lot of the conversations. We've had a lot of HR people come to us in these meetings and say, yeah, but they're doing this or they're doing that. It's like, well, yeah, the thing is like, it's here. And if you are thinking, well, we don't have a policy yet, we have time. Oh no, it's already happened. Right. So that's our big message is the teachers, the students are not waiting for you. They're already using it. Right. So how are you going to help them? You got to get something going pretty fast because they're using it already. So we talk a lot about that, but really being mindful of the data you put in, the closed versus open AI. But the bias is huge for us. That piece of ethics of you're being the human. For example, if you told AI, and I know some people do this, especially big comprehensive high schools, hey, AI, I want you to make the master schedule for next year. Here's all my students and here's like their data and such. Realize that AI has bias. And so you might have 30% of your students are English learners and AI is going to assume that means they need lower level English. And that's not the case. Right. And so you have to bring the human into the equation and do that work. And that's a lot of our conversation is, yes, it can help. But ultimately, you have to be part of it. And if you're not part of it, then why do I need you? So don't work yourself out of a job here. Like be the human in all of these conversations, right? And again, and that's like my whole thing with leadership too, right? Is be the human. Let AI help you, but ultimately be the human, bring the empathy into the situation and realize like AI comes with a lot of bias. It's taking whatever data it was given. It's not interested in making the world a better place. It's interested in giving you whatever world you gave it, giving it back to you, right? So if you give it a world full of racially biased data, that's the world it's going to give back to you. Yeah. It doesn't have this like soul that's like, oh, but Laura, right? What does it tell you every time you talk to it? That's a great idea, Laura. Yes, I love that. Oh, you're the most amazing human I've ever met, right?
Right. Like, it's very affirming. It is very affirming.
And so
that's dangerous.
Exactly. Although I'm excited about the new Notebook LM stuff where I think you kind of push it a little bit, but I do think you have to bring that to the table. Yeah. You have to say, okay, you made this master schedule. Now I'm going to ask you some really hard questions. AI, like, did you consider this? And what about this? And, and it's going to be like, oh no, sorry.
Yeah. Then it goes to apologizing. And then, but this is a nice segue to this next aspect because you were going back to, again, talking about the human centeredness and even just taking care of ourselves. And I'm just thinking about Laura, like you've done so much as a teacher, as a school administrator, as a school leader, as a nonprofit leader, as an innovative just risk taker, and even working with our local just ed ed code, ed law, just professionals. But throughout all of it, can you talk to us and just finalize this last part about leadership boundaries and sustainability? What boundaries do you set up as a leader, and how do you sustain yourself to be able to give yourself and support all of these different entities that you're a part of?
I learned the hard way, Chris. I used to think that being a leader meant 24/7. I was always on. People could call me anytime, could do anything. And that's just not it. Right? So my boundaries are like my day is over. If there's a crisis, obviously I'm not going to, ignore you, but we don't work 24/7. I will not email you at night. I will not, call you over the weekend. I had to actually force myself off the grid. Like I go off-roading now. There's no signal, even though I do have a Starlink, but there's really there's no real signal out there. Because if I email you at 8 p.m. at night, let's say it's Friday night and I have this random, I have the greatest idea ever. Oh, I gotta tell Chris. What I have is as a leader, they'll even put on like, oh, Chris, you don't have to respond to this right away. But I've already infiltrated your world. Because if you haven't turned off notifications on your phone and you get that email and you see it from me, even if you don't respond, I am now part of your thoughts. Right? And then depending on our relationship, you might say, I better respond. I know she said I didn't have to, but I better respond because, she's going to think. So I've made it clear with my team, no, I will schedule a send. So they know if they get emails Monday at 8 a.m. that I was working over the weekend, but they still know, but they know I valued them enough not to send it.
Right.
If I choose to work at night, that is my creative time. I am a midnight idea person, but they know that I value them. I'm not going to send it then. So you have to model that. I started for my school community. I started sending out some tech tips, and they weren't tech tips on like, here's a new tool you can use, but the tech tips are always about how to make your life better with the tech, right? Like here's how you can send a text message, which a lot of people didn't know iPhone could do now, right? Here's a way, like this week when it's a little bit quieter, here's how you could turn on do not disturb so you can get like a project done, and trying to teach them better ways to interact with technology to support themselves, and reinforcing that I also have another life and showing them that life, and that it's okay for them to have another life too. Because if all you ever post is I'm doing this thing and I'm working and I'm working and I'm working and I'm working, then they assume they have to do that as well. And I had to get burnt out to learn that and lose a job to learn that like nobody will ever love you as much as you love yourself. Right? So if you aren't willing to take care of yourself and put boundaries in place, I'm not going to do that for you, Chris. If you're willing to give me 18 hours of work a day, I'm going to take advantage of it. Like that's a capitalistic society, not me personally, but true. Right? But that's how most things are. And then when they don't need you anymore, they're out of money. They're not going to be like, yeah, but Chris did so much. You're going to be like, sorry, Chris, you're out.
Right.
You have, and I tell my team that I'm like, I value you. You take care of yourself. I will also show them other jobs. And I tell them like, I'm not showing you other jobs because I want you to leave, but I want you to know what you can aspire to. I also want you to know that if you wanted that other job, I'll help you get it. Right. And so I value you and what you want in the future. And how can I support you? And I think that's leadership right there.
I love that. That's a great way of finishing because, I have a lot of respect for that. And the real world doesn't care as far as how much you work and whatnot, and in different professions. And I mean, and I'm learning that. My wife is learning that. My family has been learning that. As far as when I say family, I mean my mom and my dad. My 8-month-old daughter, she's not learning that. She's learning how to crawl and what her teeth mean.
She's learning that her mom and dad are around for her because you're learning that. Right. And
exactly.
That's all that matters right now.
Exactly. And that's and she actually knows. And it's one of those things where I've had to create those boundaries as well, as far as not only working full time, but at the same being a full-time graduate student as well, and learning when to get work done, but also knowing that when the sun's out, mom and dad are available, or if not, grandma's available. Right. And it's one of those things where I'm looking at it now like, and we opened up the episode talking about me being on recess, and like really recess is like now family time. Right. But just even being able to look at my daughter and be like, I will never get those moments back again. Yeah. So I'm going to enjoy it in the here and now. And But I try to find, and I really appreciate that because I'm a big believer of schedule sending. And even when I was a school administrator for a while, I would do that on Sunday nights. I would check my emails just so I knew what I was getting into.
Yes.
But if it was a teacher that responded, if it was a teacher, I wouldn't respond until I would do schedule send and they would get it first thing Monday morning. If it was a text message from a teacher over the weekend that had a question about work, I actually didn't respond to them until Monday morning because I was like, sorry, this is my time. And I hope I'm teaching you as well. It's like, respect your time.
Right. I applaud you for that. I think it's critical that people see that because that's not what's preached in society. And even when you watch like a lot of sitcoms, right? They're showing like these overworked people and all this different stuff. And I'm like, no, that's not like, when we talked at the beginning about like what's going on my tombstone, it's not going to say Laura put in 18-hour days and sent emails at 11 p.m. and responded within 5 minutes. Like that's not it, right? But people think it is. So I'm glad you're leading that way because you're inspiring the next group.
And I appreciate that. I learned from a lot of people like yourselves and leaders like yourselves that are like, hey, I'm going to model this and I'm going to put the guardrails and the boundaries. And I think that's what allows the collaboration and these opportunities to work out. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule just to hang out for a little bit and talk a little bit about all these things about leadership and innovation and AR and VR and whatnot.
Yeah. My pleasure. All right, Chris, let's do it again.
Absolutely. So thank you, Laura, just for joining us today. And I look forward to further conversations. Laura's information is going to be in our show notes as well as her blog. Make sure you subscribe. And also, just remember, today's takeaway is very clear that meaningful innovation doesn't start with tools. It starts with leaders who are willing to ask better questions, build relationships, collaborate, set boundaries, and hold the line to purpose and equity. And I want to thank you all for tuning in today. Again, I'm your host, Chris Garcia. And if you would like to reach out to us, please send me an email at cbgarcia@sandiego.edu, or you can also check out garciaedtech.com. All right, take care, everyone.